there, that'll bring the total to over 1 million hectares, which is one of the largest such community forest projects, not only in DRC, but across the continent and across the world. So our goals in being here today really are to share, some of the highlights of what we think is some pretty incredible work, not only to inspire, but also to invite others in terms of their interests around collaboration, learning, and just helping us share some of the knowledge that we've been learning so far. Next slide, please. And this is just a further breakdown of that area, showing that it is, different chiefdoms, different communities that are involved. And so there's a huge aspect of this that is looking at finding that common ground between communities that might not have found this kind of common ground to collaborate on in the future or in the past. And so we're currently working through the process and looking to secure legal tenure for this land as well. There's a long process to it, often because it is completely dictated by the local communities. So for Dominique, a lot of this work started because he was approached directly from community leaders, traditional leaders, because there was an interest in doing more from their part around conserving their environment, because a lot of the livelihoods depended so much on it. And so as this project has grown and as different communities have collaborated and started seeing some of the benefits and starting securing their own legal land tenure, other communities have reached out, and that's what's warranted this expansion as well. Next slide, please. So this is just a breakdown looking at how some of the different chiefdoms are contributing in terms of the land mass towards the entire corridor area. So some chiefdoms just historically being larger than others, and that's just a nice visualization of that as well. And so within each of these chiefdoms, not only are traditional leaders involved, but there are community leaders, as well as individuals that are interested from the community that have come together to form conservation governance management committees. And so I'll talk about that in just a moment, but really want to emphasize that through the work that Strong Roots is doing and providing, this engagement directly with communities, listening to leaders, listening to villagers, taking that feedback, also providing some environmental awareness and education. It's really become a ground-up movement that is beneficial to all sides of it. And then the next slide, so the one with the pie chart. Yeah, so this one is just showing a breakdown of where things are at currently in terms of how the land has been secured. So it has been a process. It has been a process with the government of South Kivu to get everything legalized. But as I'm sure Dom will speak to shortly, it's really about empowering local communities, but the provincial and national governments have also taken note of this initiative as well, and they're quite proud of it, because it's showing a way forward where communities can help drive what conservation of their lands look like. It also prevents the exploitation from outside corporations. So if there are foreign mining companies, having legal land tenure protects against anybody swooping in to cut down forests to put up a mine or something like that. And then the next slide. So this is just highlighting a short film that was made in partnership with one of our partners, Age of Union. It's free on YouTube, but it's a really great film that captures Dominique's story, but also the story of the corridor, what goes into it. And that image there is just showing an aspect of the participatory mapping process. So that is where local communities come together and they essentially draw a map of their CFCL, their forest concession, on the ground. They demarcate, where land is used for what purposes. There's agreements, there's disagreements, and then ultimately it's that map that's then formalized and taken to the government before it's legalized. So it's very much from the ground up in terms of how the process would work. So encourage anyone if they have time over the weekend. Next slide. So now I want to talk about the community aspect of this. Next slide, please. So communities are at the core of this entire project. Dominique and his team at Strong Roots, many of whom you can see over on the left-hand slide there, have been instrumental in meeting with communities, taking phone calls. As many might be familiar, Eastern Congo, South Kivu, and North Kivu are going through a tough time right now with a bit of a rebel occupation. And so it's been challenging times, but the team has been committed to this project the whole way through. Fortunately, much of the area of the corridor itself hasn't seen direct fighting, so taking a bit of an extended or long route to get there, the teams have been able to get back to the communities to ensure that, you know, we can move forward based on the different headwinds or impacts that they're facing now. But some of the initiatives include establishing a community conservation governance committee. We're in the process of developing those management plans right now, which is really a lot of work and the next big stage after the legalization of these CFCLs. But then there's also the process of demarcation, working with the National Conservation Authority to demarcate boundaries of the park and these community forest concessions. So something that probably wouldn't be, I guess, as friendly of a process without a program like this. Historically, many of the communities have not trusted the conservation authority just because of that more fortress conservation approach where people have been sort of pushed out of land that they might have traditionally occupied in the past. And so I think this project, and Dom can speak to it as well, has been really significant in terms of trying to find some of that common ground, rebuild some trust, and really try and find collaboration so that both groups and both sides can work together in advancing towards common goals. Next slide, please. A big part of this as well is traditional knowledge and how that blends with science, and I know that came up in some of the other presentations as well. So a lot of ecological conservation historically has a lot of Western science sort of baked into the approaches, but with Dominique's approach and his teams, he's been really working to include and incorporate aspects of traditional knowledge into the core of how the ecosystems and the communities manage conservation. So a lot of that is revolving around different ecological sites of traditional importance, whether that might be forests for the ancestors, burial sites, or different parts of the community that have both an ecological kind of biodiversity angle to them, as well as an importance from a traditional perspective as well. And the traditional knowledge holders, so this is that's an example of it as well in terms of how we're compiling that and trying to share that out with the communities in a way that also incorporates some of the aspects of ecological conservation. So, sorry, yeah, you can go to the next slide. Yeah, and you can share the next one as well. Next slide. So here's just a quick graph looking at some of the training that's been going on around forest governance and management, which is a key part of the program, showing some of the different chiefdoms on the bottom there, and then the community members that are participating in that. And so just want to highlight the presence and inclusion of both women in these training sessions, as well as Batwa, so indigenous peoples, forest peoples from that region of Congo that are also, you know, part of the decision-making process, part of the training process, ensuring that we do make space for the different voices and perspectives. Next slide, please. And then some examples of different initiatives at the community level. So there is a lot of training from an agricultural perspective. The rabbits there are part of an initiative where rabbits have been provided to community members where their feces, their droppings are used as a natural fertilizer to help improve crop yields. And then some other pictures just showing life in the community around some of the agricultural smallhold farms and such like that, and getting that produce to market as well. Next slide. And then this is building on that agricultural piece, so looking at the implementation plan, looking at the training that's done around farming, but also around commercialization, so how do you bring your produce to market, and then the participants in each of the chiefdoms. So showing quite a big impact for the program. Even though it's a huge area, the team has been doing a great job working with the limited resources that they have to drive some of this engagement and really sustain a lot of the buy-in from the community. Next slide, please. So now we'll get into the biodiversity side of things. Next slide. So this project, and even though land tenure has been secured for only a few years, the project and monitoring of biodiversity have been going on for some time, and what we've been seeing is the return of species that were previously thought to be extinct in some of these areas, or previously their populations had disappeared. And so this is a caterpillar species, a species that is also consumed locally, that has been returning and hasn't been seen for quite some time. You can go to the next slide. Here as well are some Facebook quotes around the presence of leopard increasing in the corridor as well. So previously a species that hasn't been seen. So of course there's always going to be the interaction, the human-wildlife conflict that comes up around certain megafauna being close to villages. But for many, it is an encouraging sign to see, the return of an apex predator like this in terms of the ecosystem health as well. Next slide. And then also endemic to eastern DRC. So this is a picture of the yellow-crested helmet shrike. So a bird, I think it was a University of Texas team that helped identify it, but finding species that haven't been seen for decades, going back to I guess the pre-modern area, or the pre-independence area for Congo. And so it's been incredibly encouraging to see some of these new species and some of these species that haven't been seen. It's really allowed the teams that Dominique works with an opportunity to help share and spread a light on biodiversity in the area as well. Next slide. So yeah, just a headline at Mongo Bay. Yep. And then also, gorilla. So the Graui's gorilla is the biggest subspecies of gorilla. It's also known as the eastern lowland gorilla. With the conflict in the region in the late 90s, populations were thought to have decreased by over 77%. And so more recent studies are finding not only more populations, but finding populations maybe outside of some of the protected areas, particularly in the corridor area, which I think is emphasizing the need for these kind of broader conservation approaches that are driven by communities. So certainly encouraging. We know that with some of the monitoring that we've been doing in the corridor, we are seeing signs of quite healthy gorilla populations, which I think in times of the current conflict are quite encouraging as well. Next slide, please. So lessons learned. I'd love to try and see if Dom can come online from the Zoom call, just to see if there's anything that, I guess just to see if we can hear him. Can you hear us okay, Dom?
Hey Dominique, if you can hear us, speak. You are muted. Speak yes, we can hear
you.
Before.
We can kind of hear you. Can you try again?
Can you hear me?
Yeah. Awesome. So I guess we can pull up the next slide. Is that possible to do while Dom can talk through it? Can you see the presentation, Dom?
You can see the presentation, yes.
Okay. Let's try the next slide.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear. You want to go ahead and speak?
Oh, thank you very much. I'm sorry that I couldn't hear the presentation in all, but what I would add to what Matt just said is that we've learned a few lessons from this project, and as Matt explained, this has been a combination of efforts from the government of DRC, from local communities and indigenous people, from Forest Health Alliance and Strong Roots Together, and also other donors, to ensure that this corridor is protected and is going to be protected not just for 10 years, for 20 years, but we are looking it for a very long time, maybe around 50 years to come, to ensure that the intactness of the forest is maintained. So some of the lesson we learned from this project, one is about how cultural values can be or can serve as a tool to really sustain conservation of natural resources with local communities. And that's where I think that the modern conservation didn't probably deliver the desired outcomes because they didn't understand that cultural values were very important for people to engage in conservation initiatives. So we are working with communities, with indigenous people for whom the land and the forest is part of their cultural identity. So I think that has been one of the main reasons why they've engaged in to ensure that they can continue preserving these cultural values, which actually goes with their identity and based with the forest and species and the land. But another lesson is that we found out that how policymakers could play a big role. Since maybe 2010, we've been lobbying for laws ensuring that there is a legal basis so that communities could really handle the right of management and governance of their forest. And when this law on community forestry passed in 2014, it made actually stronger this initiative, and people, the communities, could say we have something we can, show up saying legally we have the right on these lands. So engaging with policymakers was very essential as well in this process. And maybe the last one, I don't know if Matt touched about it, as I can see on the slide, is that we ensured that we combined traditional knowledge and practices of local communities and indigenous people with science and new technologies. We found out that, science alone, as it was used before, it didn't actually help. And it need to also look at how these traditional knowledge and practices could be involved in the process and in the formal conservation approaches, so that we could ensure that all go together. And that has been really, really tremendously important to run this project. And that's why we say that even though we understand that traditional knowledge are very important in conservation, but they are not delivering the outcome alone without conciliating them or involving them with science. So we have to ensure that our programs actually use traditional knowledge and practices along with science and new technologies to deliver the desired outcomes. Also, livelihood is key. Livelihood is key, and that's why we say that livelihood needs to go in line with conservation, because there are some development projects which actually could harm conservation, as well as not conservation activities also contribute to reducing poverty in local communities settings. So again here, we have to ensure that we design actions which combine both livelihood activities with conservation together, with securing right to land for local communities and the indigenous people, so that all the success we've made here can be sustained for the years to come. So maybe that's what I want to add to what Matt has already said. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dom. We just have a couple more slides that I'll get through. So I guess they can't hear me on there, but yeah, so this is just kind of hammering home the point
And,
around stakeholders. Oh yeah, go ahead.
We talked about the stakeholders because as I these five stakeholders, key stakeholders contributing to these initiatives, conservation, human rights, and local development to actually, deliver outcomes. So we have to ensure that none of all those key stakeholders is considered as higher than another one, because everybody contributes to the initiative equally. I said I already talked a lot about the policymakers, then the communities who own the land and who live on the land, but we need the researchers, and that's where comes science and new technologies. When we are demarcating these forests and doing biological surveys and all the studies on the forests, we need some scientific tools, but again, they have to be catered at the level of traditional knowledge, so they have to be understood by the people so that the people can engage in that. Media is key. Media is very important because when the researchers, the scientists write their reports, some of them are very complicated to understand, and as in the communities, at the local level, this knowledge, scientific knowledge, to decode the scientific writings, and that's why media helps a lot to translate the scientific language in a community local things from those research. Key role in this, because we wouldn't do this without having support from our partners, our donors who contribute to make this happen. So all together, all these key stakeholders together actually makes the way we are today, and we continue working all together to ensure that we can deliver the intactness of wildlife, as we said before.
Thank you, Dom. We'll go to the next slide, please. So next steps. So next slide. So Dom, I don't know if you want to talk to some of these at a high level. I'm not sure.
We are looking at next steps, and we've actually finalized our strategic plan for 2026 and 2030. And some of the programs we'll be looking at include food security, which is key for the forest people. And that involves actually agroecology, agroforestry, but also supporting the traditional systems of governance of the forest, but also the traditional systems of producing food and conserving indigenous seeds on the corridor. Another key area of this strategic plan include sustaining source of energies. In the region we are working in, there is a high rate of demography. So we have 4% of people increasing every year, and in a region where 98% or more of energy comes from wood. So we have to ensure that we can diversify the source of energy in this region, because everything comes from wood, including wood for timber, wood for constructions, wood for energy, charcoal, and so on. So that's a key area we'll be looking at in the next 5 years, but also looking at education. Education is key. Health, we've done some surveys looking at how communities have been relying on the forest for health reasons, and we'll ensure that we work with them to ensure that we can, improve the health infrastructure, but also some communication, including local transportation to local markets. Diversifying the local economy sources is also key for the next 5 years because, for the moment, it's really, from all the socioeconomic surveys we've run, we found out that, mining is part of the key sources of local economy, which is not sustainable in the western part of the corridor, but also a few income from agriculture or selling some forest product, and we have to ensure that we work on this. But again, as we said before, working with miners is not easy. We might not have the capacities or the skills which are required really to engage with private sector, including carbon, but we think that we'll be going slowly and ensuring that we can reach there. But also, we are looking at the rate of deforestation and ensuring that the next 5 years, at least we can cut the rate of deforestation by twice. And we are ensured about this because of the engagement we see with the communities and the government. We see everybody being engaged. And we are convinced that by this engagement and putting all the strategies and all the projects we are catering together, we could be able to address the deforestation rate and cutting it from 0.2 to 0.12% in the next 5 years. I think that what I had to share about this, in addition to what Matt has already shared.
Thank you, Dom. And then I think the next slide might be our last. So this is just an overview.
So these are the our donors who have contributed to make this happen, and we address our thanks. We extend our gratitude to all of them for having contributed to this, because in some areas, when you talk about DRC, the Democratic Republic of Congo, everybody thinks about war, thinks about what is going on in a negative way, but these donors trusted Forest Health Alliance and Strong Roots, and we work together until now to ensure that we could deliver the project we are sharing with you today.
Next slide. Okay.
So we hope that by doing this and continue working with all these donors, the governments, the communities, researchers, and media, we could be able to, prepare and give a promising future for the generation to come, including sustaining conservation for wildlife and their habitats. So thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to share and to, share about this project. Thank you.
Thank you, Dom. And thank you, everyone, for your attention today. Hopefully you found our presentation to be interesting in terms of the work that Dominique's leading on the ground over there, as well as the synergies between...
Thank you very much.
Okay. I don't think he can hear me, but okay. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much,